Welcome to our video series introducing Adobe Dreamweaver. In this video, we'll build a sample web page to explore the basics of the software, its interface, and some important concepts. In this video, we'll get started getting up and running with Dreamweaver. And what I'll do in this first video is talk you through a step-by-step tutorial of me putting together a simple but effective web page in Dreamweaver. I'll be doing this particular demonstration in Dreamweaver MX 2004, but as we progress through these videos, more and more, I'll also start including the most up-to-date version of Dreamweaver. I won't be demonstrating the most up-to-date version right at the start, because with each new version, there are more and more features, so I wanted to start talking you through Dreamweaver in a way that isn't too overwhelming. But I'll get you started here, and as I mentioned, we'll soon get more up to date with the version of Dreamweaver that we'll do the demonstrations in. If you don't already have Dreamweaver, you can simply go to adobe.com and go to Products and Dreamweaver. And if you go to download free trial, you see the current version. And as I record this, the latest version, the current version, is Dreamweaver Cs3. And as you can see, it sells for around $400. Or you can upgrade from previous versions for just under $200. Or download a free trial. If you download the free trial, you need to create an Adobe account. And then you can simply download it, and it's quite a large download. It's over 200 megabytes. But you can download that and store it and play around with it if you don't already have Dreamweaver. But anyway, let's start going through this demonstration in Dreamweaver MX. There won't be massive differences between versions. There will, of course, be differences, and with each upgrade, more and more functionality gets added. And as I mentioned, that's a really good reason for using a slightly older version, just to simplify things a bit, so you can come to grips with the fundamentals now before you really start building on that. It is important to stress that Dreamweaver is just another program for creating web pages, and all web pages are built from HTML code. If you go to any web page and go View Source, you can see the code that makes up the page. And the HTML code creates the content, the structure and the content of the page, and then your web browser, in this example I'm using Firefox, your web browser instantly translates the HTML code and presents it as it should be presented. So effectively, HTML is the language for structuring web pages. But generally, it happens behind the scenes, and you don't necessarily even need to get involved with HTML. I do, however, suggest that you get familiar with it, because once you are familiar with it, you can make very powerful edits to your web pages, very powerful edits that you can't always do if you aren't familiar with HTML. And it does give you more flexibility as well. Now, it's beyond the scope of these videos to talk you through HTML, because that's not our focus. And it's a huge subject all by itself, but a great site, which hopefully will stay online for a good long while, is htmlref.com, and it contains the reference chapters from this book. If you buy this book, it also has tutorials, but here it has all the reference chapters, all the HTML tags, and effectively each HTML command is known as a tag. And there are also CSS properties. Not to get into this too deeply now, but HTML and CSS are two languages that work together in web pages. And it's HTML, you can say at the most basic level, that creates the layout of the page, and CSS applies advanced formatting. Now, there is huge overlap between the two languages, but you can say that as a broad description of them. Now, the last reference before we start this tutorial, if you're interested in learning HTML, a great free tutorial is at htmldog.com. Step by step, it starts with the very basics and gets progressively more advanced. And you can see that each section is broken up into the HTML and the CSS. It starts with the HTML and builds on that with CSS, and it's laid out in beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Okay, so back to Dreamweaver, and we have nothing open essentially. In a later video, I'll go into a lot more detail on the interface and how customizable it is, and what it all means, and it really can be quite overwhelming to begin with. That's why I tuck most things away, so I have a much more simplified interface. I find that with a more simplified interface, it's much easier to work. But for example, here, there are all these areas of the screen, and they all have more information. Design, code, application, tag inspector, files, frames, and there are even more. Through the Windows menu, you can access even more. But let's put this aside for now. We're not going to be thinking about it. Let's just click here, tuck it away. But do keep the properties box here. So let's quickly create a web page using Dreamweaver. File, New, and you have a number of choices. Dynamic page, template page, CSS style sheets, and we really don't need to get involved with this at this stage. These are quite advanced topics. For example, dynamic page is really quite advanced. Template page we aren't going to bother with yet. CSS style sheets we aren't going to spend too much time on at this stage. Let's just go with the basic page, HTML. And that's it. So create, and we have a blank page. Now, Dreamweaver is a Wysiwyg editor, like Word. And Wysiwyg, of course, stands for what you see is what you get. Effectively, how your page appears here is how it will look when it's viewed in a web browser, when it's on the internet and being viewed through a web browser. However, there are different views. As you had a glimpse of a moment ago, there's the code view. The code view shows you all the HTML code that makes up your page, and even a blank page requires HTML code. But okay, we're going to be focusing mainly in Design View, and you see in Design View, the Properties box starts getting filled with relevant information. So what I often do is insert table, and if you aren't familiar with tables, they can be considered containers for information effectively, and I'll demonstrate in just a moment why I like to use them. So let's go with one row, one column, 700 pixels wide, border thickness of 0, so that's invisible, cell padding of 10. Cell padding is the gap between the edge of the table and content within the table. Cell spacing of 0, that's fine. And let's just OK that. So there's our table, just dotted lines to show that we have a table there, but if viewed within a browser, it would be invisible. The border has a thickness of 0. So we can select that table and align it, and you see Properties automatically changes here to whatever you're working on to make it relevant to whatever you're working on. So it shows us a little table image here. And we can align the table in the center. It won't make a huge difference, but you'll see that it will jump to the center. Okay, and here it's telling us how wide our table is. The benefit of a table is whatever is within the table, it automatically keeps it to the width of the table. And the benefit there is that text lines don't get too long, and text lines that get too long are effectively unreadable. Obviously, the length of a line, if you don't have a table, the length of a line is determined purely by the size of someone's monitor and their display settings. If you want readable content, it is safer to use tables. Okay, let's quickly flesh out this page. First of all, its title. The title is what appears here in this bar of the browser. So let's just say my demo page and press enter, and there we go. So let's just quickly pull this together. Headline of page, press enter, and actually what I'm going to do is modify page properties, page font, and let's make the page font Arial. Let's make the default size 14 points. Let's make the default text color black, and the default background color of the page white. Background image, let's not bother with that, and OK that. The only real difference, which you can see immediately, is that the style of the font has changed. OK, so headline of page, and here, body content of page goes here, ... and let's select that. And I'm going to right-click and copy, and then I'm going to paste. Edit, paste. And then again, so I'm actually going to select all this. Control-C, Ctrl and C together on this keyboard to copy, and then paste. Control-V together on the keyboard. So paste, paste, paste. And OK, that will do for a paragraph. And then we can select this paragraph now, copy, put the cursor there, edit, paste, press return, edit, paste, and do it again, and OK. We're quickly creating a dummy page. And between these paragraphs here, let's do a subheading. So subheading goes here. Now let's do some more advanced formatting. Select the headline, put it in the center. Let's make it larger. Let's make it 24 points, bold, and let's say red. OK, and then the subheading, select, center, size, let's say 18, bold, and change the color to blue. OK, so we're very quickly fleshing out this page. And at the bottom, let's just put some links. This link goes to Yahoo. This link goes to Google. This link goes to Microsoft. So we select this link, select the text, and here in the Properties box, type in the full web address. So http://www.yahoo.com, and press enter. And OK, select this line here. This link goes to Google. So let's make the link go to Google. http://www.google.com, and press enter. And let's select this last line. Link in the Properties box, enter the URL, www.microsoft.com, and press enter. OK, so there's the headline, and we've applied some basic formatting to make it larger and red and bold. And there's some body content. That could be overwritten with some useful content rather than just filler text. Then subheading, centrally aligned within the page as well, and that was made blue in 18-point size and bold. And we've added some clickable links at the bottom. And now let's go to the bottom, and to take the cursor right to the end, press enter a couple of times and insert image. OK, it brings up the Select Image source box, and we can browse through our files and folders and find an image and select it, like this one, sunset.jpg, and OK that. But it's actually 800 by 600, so it's too large for the table. Let's add it and see what happens. And let's just OK that. And yes, it would expand the table around it. So now you see the table goes off the edge of the screen. But what we can actually do is just click on the edge of the corner, and you see the mouse pointer becomes a diagonal two-way arrow. So click, hold, and drag. Let go, and we've shrunk the image. Now, if we just click outside the table, and the table should just switch back to its original size. And there we go. So there's our image. And we can click on it and align it in the center. And you can see how this very quick demonstration page is coming together. What we've just done here is really the very basics of what's possible within Dreamweaver. If we just changed this dummy text with some genuine text and just fleshed out the page a little, it would be a perfectly plausible web page. So it can be quick and easy in Dreamweaver to create web pages that look and act absolutely fine and that don't require you to be an advanced web designer. Just having a quick look at some further options, there's a huge amount of power hidden in Dreamweaver, and we've really just scratched the surface. You can see, for example, that you can insert here insert media, and insert flash, animations and video, and so on. Or applets, which are really small software programs. Really, a massive amount is available. And if we take a quick look in Code View, and if we go to the top left of the document, you see that all the code has been created automatically behind the scenes. And actually, the split view splits the screen, the available space, half in Code View and half in Design View. And where you click the cursor, if I select the subheading, for example, it automatically selects that area of the code. So that actually greatly shortcuts the ability to learn HTML, because you can make edits here. All you need to do is watch what changes within the code. And if at any time you want to tuck the properties box away, you just click on this little arrow and the properties box gets tucked away. Then you can pull down the page divider so you have more viewing space. So there's our code in the top. And there's our page, our Wysiwyg editing page, on the bottom. Okay, let's go to Design View, and let's save. File, Save, and let's quickly save it to the desktop, though you can, of course, save it to wherever you like. I'm just going to save it as test.html. Generally, a web page ends in .htm or .html, and you can see here, save as type, all documents .htm or .html, and there are also lots of other options such as .shtm, shtml, and so on. You don't really need to get involved with those too much unless you start getting into the more advanced side of being a webmaster. Webmaster, of course, is just a term used for someone who manages a website. So generally, unless you're using advanced features, ending any web page in .html is fine. And generally, the front page of any website would be index.html. That's generally the first page a web browser looks for when it visits a new site. Actually, index.html is generally the suggested name for the front page of your website. Okay, let's just save test.html. Okay, it's saved and it's on the desktop, so I'm going to double click it so we can take a look at it in the browser. And that's how it looks. That's all it took to put a perfectly good looking page together in Dreamweaver very quickly. So there's our title, that appears in the title bar, my demo page, and our headline, headline of page, bold red, larger font, our body text, which we can easily overwrite with something meaningful, our subheading, our links, for example, click on the Google one, and of course in the status bar here, the bar at the bottom here, the status bar, it tells you where the link is going. If I click that, I'll be taken to Google. But let's go back. And lastly, our image appears at the bottom of the page. It's important to note that an image doesn't actually become a part of your web page. What HTML does is it references an image. What you could say is that within HTML there's a pointer that pulls in this image when it's viewed within a web browser, but the image isn't actually part of the HTML code. The image can reside somewhere else and just be referenced, so it's pulled in when the page is viewed in a web browser. Because if we go back to Dreamweaver, okay, I've gone back to Dreamweaver and the code view, and you see, just to very quickly demonstrate, the HTML tag, the HTML command is img image, and then src source equals, and then it just points to where the image is. It's just pulling in the image temporarily to display in the web browser. Back in Design View, if I just click on the image just once and bring the Properties box back up, I click on this little arrow. It tells you the source, where it is. So that's a quick demonstration in literally just a few minutes of what's possible in Dreamweaver, and a quick introduction to the interface and some important concepts. After this quick demonstration, we'll now start going step by step through Dreamweaver so you can follow along and become productive with the software very quickly. And as we build on the fundamentals, we'll get progressively more advanced in the features we cover and the functionality we add to our web pages.